Hello everybody. Today we're looking at fish. That's right, fish, not Ghoti, but fish. This new water/fish archetype was just released to Master Duel. It focuses on synchro summoning and mostly on your opponent's turn, getting good effects of either getting banished or another fish being banished. Its big boss is the Fish of the Deep Beyond, which banishes the entire field and then summon itself back in the standby phase, but the deck has easy access to most level 10 synchros. It's best played going first, as summoning on our opponent's turn is pretty slow, and if they can establish a board with a couple of negates, we're probably screwed, sadly. And hey, if you enjoyed these deck lists I make, why not leave a like or even subscribe? Building the decks, learning them, writing a script, recording and then editing takes more time than you'd assume. So why not show some appreciation by clicking those buttons? Now, let's talk fish. First, we have Paces, the light of the fish. A level 2 water fish tuner. It can banish itself to summon out a fish type from your hand. Then, it has the second effect, which is shared amongst the level 2 tuners. It can special itself from the banished pile in the standby phase the turn after it was banished. Then it can, during your opponent's phase, synchro summon a fish type using itself and whatever material. Next up is Shift, Fairy of the Fish. It's a level 2 fish tuner. Its first effect is to banish itself from the graveyard to increase a fish monster's attack by 500. And being banished of course activates its second effect the following turn, which makes it a vital combo piece as it can banish itself. The second effect is the exact same as Paces. Finally, the last of the level 2 tuner is Zap, Ruby of the Fish. Its first effect is to banish itself from your hand to banish a fish from your graveyard. It's not a great effect, but it can set up a Shift or a Paces in the banished pile. Its second effect differs from the others in that it doesn't special itself on the next standby phase. Instead, the effect is immediate but only during your opponent's turn. We can reliably banish it on our opponent's turn through a level 6 synchro I'll cover later. Just know it's a vital combo piece as well. Exeep, Omen of the Fish. It's a level 4 water fish. If a fish monster is banished, we can special summon this card from our hand. If itself is banished, we can recycle a fish trap card from the graveyard or banished pile. It's a nice extender if we can activate one of the little fish to banish itself. Then the last of the main deck fish archetype monsters, Shade of the Fish. It's a level 6 water fish and has 3 effects. It can banish 2 fish types from your hand or graveyard to special summon itself. And then when it is special summoned, it can mark a face-up card to be banished when it leaves the field. And when itself is banished, it can banish a fish type in the graveyard to recycle itself. It's another extender, but has some more versatility in marking things to be banished. This can be used on your tuner fish to set them up for more synchro plays next turn, or one of your opponent's cards with an annoying graveyard effect like a recycle or a floating effect. The recycle of itself is also very good, and make sure that we don't run out of non-tuners over the course of our combos. Then we have the fish support cards, BEAUTUNAFUL Princess, Lifeless Leaf Fish and Menai Ruka. People do run other cards than these, such as Abyss Shark and Silent Angler, but these are my preferred picks. Lifeless Leaf Fish is the primary starter in the deck. We want to summon it and then send Shift to grave, using Shift's effect targeting Leaf Fish. This sets up a level 6 synchro into a level 8 synchro on your opponent's turn, and that combo itself sets up another Leaf Fish for the turn after that. I'll show the combo later in the video. On top of that, Leaf Fish can also shuffle back 3 fish types from the graveyard to the deck to draw a card. Very nice if we get into the grind game and start to work through our extra deck, we can then shuffle them back and special summon them again. BEAUTUNAFUL Princess, when it is normal or special summoned, you can banish it to summon a level 4 or lower fish type from the deck. Most of the time this is going to be leaf fish to get our combo started. It banishes itself for cost, so it is nicely protected against things like Imperm and Veiler. And keep in mind it's a when effect, so it can miss its timing if you use it in the middle of a link, a chain link. Minairuka, it's another extender in the vein of Exeep. It has two effects. The first, when, again a when a water monster effect is activated, you can quick effect special summon this card. While it's on the field, you can banish a face-up fish type, then target a face-up card on the field, negates its effects until the end of your opponent's turn. Notably, this can negate like floodgates, trap cards, field spells, and monsters, but it can also miss its timing. But since we have so many water monsters activating their effects during the course of our turns, we're basically guaranteed to at least have a window to summon it. The fish archetype also has its own field spell, the most distant, deepest depths. The field spell protects itself from being destroyed or banished if we control a fish type. Then it can banish a fish type from your graveyard or hand and add a fish archetype monster from the deck to the hand. This can, of course, get our tuner fish into rotation, and the ideal target is Exeep, as it will allow you to special summon itself if you search it using the effect, despite not being in the hand when you banish the fish type. The second effect of Deepest Depths allows you to recycle itself if you normal or special summon a fish type at the cost of banishing a fish type you control. And the fish also have their own traps, but I only play a single copy of them. It's Fish Chain. Banish a fish type to special summon a fish archetype from your banished grave or deck with a different name. Banish it when it leaves the field. This allows us to rotate fish. Can also let us dodge annoying stuff like Lightning Storm and reuse Synchro. It's decent, but a bit slow. Then we have Terraforming, Gold Sarcophagus, and Pot of Desires. These help us to have more consistency. Simple as that. Then two-dimensional Fissure. This should probably be Shifter, but I was super unlucky with my pulls and I had to save some CP somewhere. The rest of the main deck is either hand traps or related to them, so let's get into the extra deck. First up, we have Arianpos, Serpent of the Fish. It's the lowest level fish synchro. And if it is synchro summoned, banished a level 6 or lower fish type from your deck. If it is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, we can banish a fish type from our graveyard, and then add a fish type with a lower or equal level from the deck to the hand. This is what we use Leaf Fish and Shift to go into on our opponent's turn. We then use its effect to banish a Zap, which will allow us to immediately special summon the Zap and use Zap's effect to summon a Synchro 8. And speaking of Synchro 8, we have Ascan, the Bicorned Fish. This is my preferred Synchro 8 to go into on my opponent's turn. If it is Synchro summoned, you can banish a fish type you control and a card your opponent controls. And if itself is banished, you can banish a fish type from your graveyard to special summon itself. And banishes are of course always nice to disrupt and interrupt our opponent. What's extra nice is that Ascan brings itself back afterward, so if they chain something to your summon, you can bring out the Ascan and then dodge it, banish their stuff, and then bring back the Ascan again to the board. Very good. Then we have White Aura Whale. When, again, a when effect. When this card is synchro summoned, you can destroy all your opponent's attack position monsters. This card can attack 2 times per battle phase. This card has piercing damage, and if it is destroyed by an opponent's card or battle and sent to the graveyard, we can special summon it back to the field as a tuner. This is clearly a pretty stacked card. It does though often miss the timing on its first effect, so you gotta be careful. But damn, it is so worth it if you can bait your opponent into a white whale, as it will just clear everything for very little. The double attack and piercing is of course very nice as well. It allowed me to easily deal with a crooked cook player, for example. And if that wasn't enough, it also floats. Incredible. Googlim, Spear of the Fish, can banish the monster it battles, and in your opponent's standby you can banish this card, summon back the materials that were used to make it from the graveyard. I really haven't found a reason to use the second effect. Its first effect is not to be underestimated. Many cards have protection against battle or card effect destruction. Much fewer cards have protection against a non-targeting banish in the damage step. Then Emancipator Dragite. The relevant effect here is the second one. It's a once per turn spell trap negate with destruction. Not quite as good as an Omni negate, but pretty close. Sometimes we can make a Synchro 8 on our turn 1 through Snopiosis and our level 2 Tuner Fish. Dragite is my preferred summon if that's the case. Burrow on the Floor needs no introduction. It's a once per turn pop with a Omni negate. It's the best synchro in the game. Then we have Shengying. This guy is pretty cool in this deck. Not only is he water, which fits the theme, but he also loves stuff being banished, which the rest of the deck does too. He can grow pretty sizable if you're in a longer game, gaining 100 attack for each banished card. He also has destruction protection. If a card is banished, you can activate him to banish a card from both the opponent's graveyard and field. Protection, big stats, and removal, what's not to like. Fish of the Deep Beyond. I quickly mentioned this at the top. It gains 500 attack for each banished monster. If it is synchro summoned during your opponent's turn, you can banish all cards on the field. And then during the next standby phase, if this was banished from the field, special summon it back. Crazy. Imagine being on the receiving end of this one. You've set up a really nice board, but you haven't gotten a negate yet. And your opponent activates their strange level 2 Tuner Fish and drops this guy on you. Not only does he banish the entire field, leaving you with nothing, which can certainly be a turn ender, but it also gets huge afterwards and swings in for the rest of your life points. Pretty crazy. Ice Jade Gumir Agarine. Impossible name. The last of the level 10 synchros, and this one is pretty damn cool. It has 3 effects. First one is quick effect. Face-up monsters you control cannot be destroyed or banished by your opponent's card effects this turn. Second one is if you activated this card in response to your opponent's card or effect, and your opponent has a card or cards with that name as the card you chained to on their field or in the graveyard, you can banish those cards. Multiple. If a card is banished by your opponent's card effect while this card is in the graveyard, you can special summon it back. Protection for your field, disruption through banishment, and it floats. Sign me up. Then we have a couple of cards no one plays but I wanted to experiment with. These are basically your flex spots where you can slot in anything you like Zeus maybe. These are Bujinki Ahashima and Sky Cavalry Centauria. Why? Bujinki Ahashima lets us basically grab an XYZ from the extra deck for free as long as we have 2 cards of the same level, one in hand and one in the grave. And I'll show you a game where I use this line to a great effect against a Sword Soul player. Preferably you want to use it for level 4s and go into Abyss Dweller, but Centauria is here to cover our level 2s as well. And then as mentioned, Abyss Dweller, probably the #1 most used tech card at the moment. Basically just stop cards activating in your opponent's graveyard. It's fantastic against Tyr and Ijizu, which are running rampant right now. Finally, Abyss Keeper. I've rarely had this come up. Regardless, it has 2 effects. Special summon a fish type from your hand to a zone this card points to. And then you can target a fish type monster you control and target a card your opponent control and banish them. It's pretty decent, offering both extension and disruption. I've just not had it come up yet that I need the extension at the cost of 2 monsters. But I bet with more time I'd encounter many times where the banish effect would save again. And that's the list. It's a pretty long one today, but with so many new cards, I guess that is to be expected. Let's jump into that aforementioned game against Sword Soul, and then a regular combo without using Bujinki. Alright, so here we go with the fish combo. Starting off with the Sword Soul game right here, we're gonna start off with a Beautiful Princess, and chaining the Minairuka to that. Minairuka will special summon itself, the princess will summon the Leaf Fish. Leaf Fish will dump Shift as always. Shift will banish itself, setting up itself for next turn. We'll do a Desires, draw 2, use these guys to go into Bujinki Ahashima because I drew the Shade of the Fish. That will allow us, the Ahashima effect will allow us to grab a Abyss Dweller immediately, and then we will end turn. Important here is that the Shade of the Fish can summon itself on a quick effect on our opponent's turn, so this can be the material used for the synchro that we will use the Shift to make. So we can go into an 8 and have Abyss Dweller up using the Ahashima. So as you can see here, we now have 2 fish in grave, meaning that we can banish out for the Shade. It goes Moye, revealing the Ashuna. Shade goes, activates, chaining to Moye. And I think he panics here. I think he thinks I'm about to banish his monster, but he decides to tribute it with Heavenly Circle. Probably forgetting I Abyss Dwellered, so he can't use the second effect of the Heavenly Circle. I'm gonna Droll him here to just really lock it down, and Longyang goes out. I will chain my Shift to his Longyang so we can get the banish of the... ooh, I forget the name. The Askan. So we banish Ashkan and the Longyang, bring back the Ashkan by banishing the Shift, setting up for next turn, and that's as much as the Sword Soul player was willing to take. So there you go, that's why the Bujinki line is nice, because we can establish more power and have an easier way of establishing the Abyss Dweller, which is pretty important in these matchups these days. Alright everybody, so this is gonna be the basic combo for fish. And we just use the Leaf Fish, use its effect to send the Shift to the graveyard, activate the Shift, target the Leaf Fish. This will activate the Exeep, and like we could go off from there, but I won't. I'm just gonna pass here, as this is like the most bare bones combo. Princess can of course summon out the Leaf Fish, that's another way you can go into it. Our Shift will come back in the standby phase, and yes, it is before the end of the main phase. That means we want to activate the Shift to go into the Arion boss. It goes out. It will allow us to banish a fish from our deck. We will banish Zap, because Zap will immediately activate, summoning itself, and then we can use its effect to go into an 8. If our opponent would have a bunch of attack position monsters, they have set up a very strong board. Could use the ROL to destroy everything. If they have consolidated their power into a single monster, we can of course use the Askan to get rid of it. This card is pretty great, as it allows us to not only banish our opponent's stuff, but also set up our banished pile for next turn. I'm gonna banish up the Shift using the Arion boss effect. And normally here I would add a Princess to be able to go into the Leaf Fish, but seeing as I have all of that, and this is really only an example, I'll just add the pieces. When the Askan effect goes, it will allow you to banish a card from your graveyard to bring it back to the field, meaning that we really don't get any big minuses for just banishing a card from our opponent. And that is the basic loop, what you're going to do. Of course, any extension is going to increase the amount of stuff that we can do. And then on Back on our turn, we can then go for any of our big level 10s, the Ister, the Fish of the Deep Beyond, the Shengying, and the Barone. I do like Barone, so I'm just gonna go into that here. But with that, I will also wrap up this combo guide and this video. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe as I fight for ever elusive 1,000 subscribers. Leave a like, hit the bell, share with your friends, you know. Let's get some fish love in here, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.